Hello and welcome to The Right Mama with Jennifer Aline, a creative space where we talk about the writing process, the publishing industry, and motherhood chaos. Many of you know a lot of the writers on AuthorTube on YouTube have collaborated and done a little special giveaway video group called the 12 Writing Tips of Christmas. And in these videos, they collaborate with other authortubers, other writers. They work on some giveaways, some discounts, some specials, awesome things like that. Well, I really liked the questions they asked in their videos, so I decided to borrow those questions and answer them here. Unfortunately, I don't have any giveaways today, but maybe in the future I will. There will be 12 writing-related questions that I will answer for you, and hopefully you'll get to know me a little better. I'll be able to give you some suggestions that might help you out with your writing or your marketing or publishing or anything when it comes to the writing world. And let's start off with number 1. Every question is kind of holiday themed, which I also thought was really cute, so I'm going to be reading them because I definitely didn't memorize them. So, question 1 is Christmas sweets. Like you give Christmas sweets, what are the most helpful comments to give writers when they are reading other people's work? So I think some suggestions when it comes to writers looking for betas would be do your research. Don't just find a best friend or somebody who wants to read your story. Look on Twitter, look in the AuthorTube community, the BookTube community. Find somebody who you do not know on a personal level, because if you know somebody on a personal level, you might get some feedback that is either, just, it may not be what you and do your research, ask them a few questions, look into their platforms, make sure they're not just some creeper who wants to read and steal your work, but make sure there's somebody that you trust. Question number 2, the theme is Frosty the Snowman. Frosty the Snowman. Who's the most unique or interesting character you've ever created? What trait does a character need to connect with the reader? Unique characters. I like to write characters that are kind of all over the board. They're diverse, they're different. Of course, you put some of yourself into your characters or people or, stories you've heard into their characters. But when it comes to me, the most unique character I've ever written is probably one of the characters I wrote in the book that is debuting next year. So I don't really want to talk too much about her just because I want people to read more about her, but I'll give you kind of a little overview of what her character's story is. She's always had a plan. She always wanted to get married at a certain age and have babies at a certain age. Well, she has surpassed the time of that age to get married, so she decides to keep following through with having babies at a certain age, and she decides to do it in any way possible. So that's that character. You may have kind of recognized her storyline from when we've talked about pitches or synopsis writing or queries, but I think she was probably the most unique and interesting character because she definitely was different. She was very vibrant. Her personality is fun. But I think you really want to write characters that do connect to the audience on a personal level. You want to relate to where they are in life. You want to have someone that maybe either they could be friends with or they could, see in real life somebody that, this character I'm talking about, you may have someone who's like that in your life. You may, you want them to be relatable. You want to be able to picture them and write very in-depth character imagery in there. You want their voice to be very clear and their wants and needs and beliefs to be very known. That really makes your character attractive, I think, to an audience. Number 3 is Christmas tree. What about writing lights you up the most? How do you keep this enthusiasm when things turn hard? Well, writing has always been something that lights me up. It's always been my go-to when it comes to just something I need to do if I have free time or something I want to do and I try to make time for it. I think the most exciting part about writing for me that lights me up the most is being able to create a totally new world, a totally different world with characters that nobody has ever met except for you, which is really cool. and just write about them and create a whole story that no one else knows. I think that that's really exciting because if you're a writer, you have these stories that are just in your brain and you have to like spit them up on the page or spit them up on the keyboard. It sounds really gross. But I think that that's the most exciting part, is writing these stories and characters and then going back, reading through them, being like, wow, these actually are real now and they're sounding real. And you kind of, it's impressive to yourself, and it also makes it makes you excited because those dreams that you had are now becoming real. So I think that that's kind of what lights me up. Number 4 is Nutcracker. And it says, how do you create characters or items that come to life on the page? What tips do you have for describing them so readers can visualize and feel them? I like how feel on this is in quotes, because you want to show, not tell. You want the reader and the audience to feel the emotions of the characters. You want them to be in the shoes of those you're writing about. I think when it comes to this question is, like I've said kind of before, you want to write characters with a very unique and powerful voice. Voice is very important. There's my word, important. When it comes to getting published, a lot of agents and editors really want characters that have voices that are known from page 1. They want to have distinct voices. So I think you want to make sure you know that character. You know that character's their physical features, their mentality, how do they think, what do they believe in, what are their needs, wants, dreams, passions, fears. You really want to outline, at least I outline, I think it's suggested, outline each important character that you write and get to know them. I've said before, go on Pinterest, find pictures that kind of look like your characters, so then they become more visual to you if maybe you're having a hard time picturing them. So I think making a very distinct character with a distinct voice and, you know, outlining them is what helps you kind of bring your characters to life. Number 5 is nativity. And who are the people you could not be on this writing journey without? It's funny because I've kind of been on this writing journey by myself, I feel like, in a way, almost my entire life. I really didn't have very many people growing up who understood my passion for writing, or the reason I would rather write than play dodgeball or go, you know, play this game or that game. I grew up without that kind of a support system, but I had people supporting my passions, but they didn't really understand to that extent. My brother, who passed away 11 years ago, was a writer, a great poet. He just had such a way with words. And growing up, I always liked to write with him. So he definitely was somebody who growing up I needed and appreciated when it came to writing. In this past year, getting involved in AuthorTube. I know it sounds a little crazy and cliche, but just through November's NaNoWriMo and getting more involved with the live streams and with the other authors and writers on AuthorTube, it's become a huge support system. I love hearing other people's stories and seeing where they are and seeing what suggestions they have. So that's great too. My mom has always been very supportive of my writing. Let's see, who else? I have some friends who are also writers, a couple of them, and they also ask me and they're supportive about it. But I say this writing community, my brother growing up, my mom, that's really the support system I've had, and I'm so thankful for it. Number 6 is Christmas Story, Love Actually. Who is your favorite couple you've ever written, and how would they spend the holidays? What do you like to see happen with couples in fiction? My favorite couple I've ever written. I've got to say again, one of my favorites, my favorite couples probably are in the book that'll be getting published next year. I do not want to talk too much about this because I want you to read about it. This couple was inspired by 2 of my friends, and these individuals are gay. And I not only wanted to bring that dynamic into my story, but their story was so beautiful and inspiring and unique that I had to involve it in mine. In a way, it's not exactly the same story whatsoever from theirs and the one I wrote, but those 2 characters were probably my favorite. I also wrote 2 characters in the very first book ever, the book I self-published, so it was my second novel I wrote, and they were both cancer patients, and that was a nice story. I did like to write that love story. But I think when it comes to couples, again, you want to make them realistic, relatable. You want to make them visually, able to visually see them when you're reading the story so people can picture them. You want their voices to be distinct. You want them to be different. You want every character to be very different and diverse. And I think that's what makes couples and characters pretty good to read. Number 7 is Christmas food. What's your favorite Christmas snack to help fuel your writing? I know this answer, and it's back here. Coffee! Today we went to Barnes & Noble story time with my girls, and that's when I get my Starbucks. But other than coffee, I don't know. I really don't eat when I'm writing. A lot of people have snacks that they like to eat when they're writing, but I'll just drink coffee, I feel like. So I don't really have anything for that. Maybe I'll have some chocolate if we have chocolate or ice cream, but really it's just coffee. Number 8 is Christmas gifts. What gift of advice has helped or inspired you during your writing journey? I know this answer, and it goes back to my brother. When I was younger, I knew I always wanted to be a writer, but very early on, I was always saying, I want to be a famous writer. I want my books all over the shelves. I want to travel the world, all these somewhat unrealistic things that when you grow older and realize, oh, I need a job and I need this and that before I can do anything that crazy. I didn't know that at that age. So when I was younger, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And my older brother, Matt, who also was a writer, he would look at me and he said, I quote, I'll never forget this, "You do not want to be famous. You want to be respected." And that's obviously stayed with me. I was probably like younger than 10 when I said this to him. And he said, you do not want to be famous, you want to be respected. And that has stuck with me. I would love to be, well known all over the world. However, I want to be a respected author for my writing, my storytelling ability, my characters. That's what I want. So my girls just woke up a little early. Here they are, and we're gonna see how long this is one of them. We're gonna see how long we can keep going with this video. And the next question is number 9, and it's 3 wise men. 3 wise men. What started your journey to writing? Did it turn out the way you expected? What advice would you give your past self? This is a funny one. My journey, like I said, I always was writing. That was something that started at a very young age. I would tell myself as that 7-year-old child that it's not easy. People are not going to believe that you want to be a writer. They're going to say you need to do something else, that cliche. Oh gosh, guys. No. I'm playing with my keyboard. I would tell myself, don't want to be a famous writer. Be respected, like my brother said. Just write for you, don't write for the rest of the world. Write what you want to write. And I would tell myself, just be patient. Because I've always I feel like I've rushed, and I've just always thought by a certain age I had to be a published author. And you don't, there's not an age for it. And they're also doing something to my keyboard. Girls, stop. Number 10 is Santa's bag. If Santa could help you meet your author of choice, who would it be? This is easy. Jodi Picoult. I love Jodi Picoult's work. I actually met her at my very first ever writers conference I went to in 2007. In 2007. And I had mono at the time, but I still went. And I got in line for her to sign. I think it was 19 minutes back then. And she saw my hair and she's like, oh, we're twins. Done. Like, best day ever. I also love Jennifer Weiner. I think she's a great writer. But Jodi Picoult has always been my favorite. Number 11 is Santa's Little Helpers, and I definitely have my little helpers right here. That's for sure. Santa's Little Helpers. What writing resource has been the most helpful to you? As cliche again as it sounds, AuthorTube has been really helpful. I don't know if writers' conferences work in this response, but writers' conferences have been a huge resource. You connect, you make great connections, you talk to so many great professionals in the field, other authors that have been through similar experiences as you. That has been such a helpful resource. Let's see. querying, getting the feedback that you get. No touching, no touching. So I think those are probably the best resources. Podcasts are great. The AuthorTube videos here. If they get into any crazy emails, I'm going to freak out. But those have probably been the best resources. And number 12 is Advent Calendar. And it says, how do you juggle writing with the busy holiday season? 1, 2, 12. Good. She's my more social one, if you can't tell. Hi. So juggling writing is hard, especially when you have, do you want to come up here? When you have 2 toddlers who wake up early and don't let you do things during nap time. I try to do a lot of my work during nap time. I teach classes very early in the morning, and sometimes between classes I get some writing done. So I would say make a schedule. If you have children who nap, try to write during that nap time. If you have some time certain nights of the week, make those your writing nights. Write it down, really get it a set schedule, especially during the holidays, because because you're really trying to do everything. You're multitasking, and you're trying to buy gifts, you're trying to budget, you're trying to cook, you're trying to wrap gifts, you're trying to work. It's chaos. So I would say I would say try to organize and find time to do that. Okay, well that's today's video. I appreciate you listening. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. I hope some of my tips were helpful. It was kind of a whole messy jumble of chaos today, but it shows some of the chaos of motherhood. So please subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and stay creative. And coffee it up, folks.